Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Test Those Breasts podcast. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn. I'm a retired teacher of 20 years and a breast cancer thriver turned staunch, unapologetic, loud supporter and advocate for others, bringing education and awareness through a myriad of medical experts, therapists, caregivers, and other survivors. A breast cancer diagnosis is incredibly overwhelming with the mounds of information out there, especially on Dr. Google. I get it. I'm not a doctor, and I know how important it is to uncover accurate information, which is my ongoing mission through my nonprofit. The podcast includes personal stories and opinions from breast cancer survivors and professional physicians, providing the most up-to-date information at the time of recording. Evidence, research, and practices are always changing, so please check the date of the recording and always refer to your medical professionals for the most up-to-date information. I hope you find this podcast a source of inspiration and support from my guests. Their contact information is in the show notes, so please feel free to reach out to them. We have an enormous breast cancer community ready to support you in so many ways. Now let's listen to the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Hello, friends. Welcome back to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn, and today I am super excited to have my guest, Nancy Kinnear, on my show. Nancy and I actually met online. We are in a private group together, and I reached out and wanted to interview anyone who could help our breast cancer community. And Nancy and I got on the phone and had a good conversation about her life and her daughter's life. So Nancy, she's got an unwavering love and dedication. Nancy supported her daughter, Savannah, through her remarkable 6-year battle with metastatic breast cancer, and inspired by Savannah's unshakable faith, courage, and resilience, their enduring bond has sparked a drive in Nancy to carry on her daughter's legacy. Savannah continues to inspire Nancy to cherish every moment, discover strength in challenges, and live with purpose. Nancy struggles in her search for who she is in this sea of grief, navigating her new reality in order to find her purpose and meaning in life. Nancy is guided by her faith in Christ and leans heavily on her loving husband. Well, hello, Nancy. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jamie. Thank you for having me. I don't know how to say, but not as rough as yours.
Well, to my audience, I'm pretty sick today. I don't know what I have, but I've been in bed all week. Kept coming back from Costa Rica, and but I'm so glad that we got to connect today.
Yeah.
Nancy, your daughter Savannah did not pass away very long ago. It was did you say last May? April? Yes. So this is still very raw and fresh for you. But I'm excited to talk to you because Savannah had a way of making sure that you carried on her legacy to educate and bring her story to as many people as possible. So I'm so grateful that you're here to share that story. I would like to start out. I always like to ask my audience, who the person was before breast cancer. And so what I would like to ask you is, what was your relationship? What were you all doing? What was it all like with you and Savannah before she got diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer?
Savannah and I have always been close. She was a really quiet little girl growing up, so she was always with mom. And it continued that way all through her years. Savannah went to college, and I cried for like weeks and weeks and weeks because, we saw each other every day. We did everything together. We shopped together, movie nights together. I mean, we were like best friends. I mean, that's how our relationship was. So we always hung out together. She went off to college. I cried and cried and cried. We still talked every day. And actually, I was living in Oklahoma while she was in college in San Marcos, Texas. So we were really far away from each other. And that was really hard on us. So she graduated with her bachelor's in business and accounting as her minor. So she was always like self-driven. she put her mind to something and she set out to do that. And she wanted to make sure she graduated in 4 years. She didn't want to go on longer and longer, and she did that. She excelled in everything she did. And I mean, we relied on each other. I mean, throughout everything. I mean, life. If she was having a good day, I heard from her. If she was having a bad day, I heard from her. I mean, it was, I mean, wonderful. I mean, she was, I mean, I miss her. I miss my best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I had that same kind of relationship with my mom. My mom and I were incredibly close, and I would call her every single day. That was one of the first things I did. I'd get in my car to go to work, and I would call my mom. Anytime
Yes.
I was coming home from work, I called my mom. I probably talked to her at least 2 times a day. And she used to leave messages for me all the time. And so when she died 5 years ago, my life changed dramatically. And so I know that bond between a mother and daughter. And I'm so sorry for your loss. It is unfathomable to realize you're not going to be around them any longer. But you have also harnessed that love in a way that Savannah would be very proud of you. And I would love to know, what were the circumstances around her diagnosis? What was her diagnosis, and what was her treatment?
Okay. Well, it was at this time, she was already done with college because it was May of 2018. And she noticed a lump on her left breast, right above it. She didn't think much of it, didn't mention it. And then she kind of thought, maybe I need to let mom know. And again, I was living out of town. So she called me up and she's like, hey, I feel this lump on my left breast. And I thought, okay, well, at 24 years old, the first thing that doesn't come to my mind is breast cancer. And I thought, well, possibly maybe a cyst, um, let's keep an eye on it and see what happens. Well, not even a month later, it grew a little bit. So she mentioned it again, and I said, I think you're going to need to go have that checked out. And she's like, well, what do I do? And I said, go ahead and go to the doctor and go from there. And we are so glad that, they took her serious, because 24 years old, you're not thinking breast cancer. You're not thinking cancer at all. And so she went, the doctor looked at it and referred her over to a breast center there in Waco, Texas. And you had to have a referral to get in there anyway. So it worked out. So they went in, they did the exam. They did notice some things, but they don't tell you right away. So it happened really quickly. By the time that she went in, they scheduled her for the biopsy. When they did the biopsy, that was like a Thursday or Friday. By Monday, she was told that it was breast cancer at that certain time. And then again, it moved fairly quickly. And I drove back home to be with her because, I mean, I didn't know how to react when she said, mom, it is cancer. And I heard the fear, in her voice and stuff. So I thought, I got to get home. I need to get home and be with my daughter. And so her first oncologist that she went to, and I always stress this, finding a doctor that you're comfortable with. And when Savannah, being diagnosed at 24, the doctor didn't really seem to listen to Savannah. Like, Savannah had concerns because, everything was being thrown at her. We need to decide if you're going to have a double mastectomy. Do you want to just remove the one left breast? We got to start you on chemo. We got to talk about radiation. All this is being thrown at her. And at the time, we had no idea, like, even of staging. We didn't know what that meant. We didn't know if she had the surgery, was that it? Was she done with, the breast cancer? And so, she asked the questions, and you could just tell he was always like, yeah, okay. And then she started reading up on it, and she asked about, I understand, being 24, I'd still like to have a family, but with chemo, I'd like to talk about, freezing my eggs, just in case. And he's like, oh, we'll talk about that later. We need to get started. We need to get you on chemo. We need to decide on the surgery date. Have you decided on that? And she just felt so rushed. And they did the test, and they said they did all the scans, and they were at first telling her that she was a stage 2B, is what they had told her in the beginning. She kept saying, Mom, I'm not comfortable with this oncologist. And I said, okay. So we decided to go look somewhere else for a second opinion. So we ended up going to a cancer hospital in Houston, Texas. And it was a very large hospital there. From my understanding, it was really good oncologists and stuff. So we ended up going there, and they went ahead and redid all the scans and everything. And we brought all the records that we had from her first oncologist. Well, we learned that, and this is why it's so important, to get a second opinion. Even when we gave them all the tests and everything that they run, blood work and all, we found out that the CT scans that they had done on Savannah, they didn't even cover all her organs. It was just like up here. So when the hospital, am I allowed to say the hospital's name or?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's easier for me. MD Anderson is where we ended up going, Houston, Texas. So when
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I didn't know. So when they did her scans again, that's when they found out that it had already spread. So it was
they did her whole body.
Yes.
After that. Okay.
So she was automatically stage 4, de novo is what they said. And she did have the surgery and everything done here in Waco, Texas. So she was already flat when she went to MD Anderson. So we should have just went with our instinct and went to MD Anderson, but we didn't because there was so much that she missed in between that. So when she got there, she was stage 4, and we had a wonderful oncologist there who really listened to Savannah and got her into, so she got to freeze her eggs like she wanted to. In the surgery, they did remove both her breasts, so she had a double mastectomy. They removed 36 lymph nodes from her left arm. And then they did show about 4 tumors sitting on her liver. And then there was a spot on her lung, but they were unsure about the spot. They wanted to watch that. They didn't want to go in and do a biopsy at that time. So as we went to MD Anderson, she was more explained of the situation and how it was going to start. So right away after freezing her eggs, she went straight to the IV chemo, and they hit her pretty aggressively through that. So she lost her hair like 2 weeks after chemo. And
I was 1 week.
1 week.
Well, actually, it was 2 weeks, I guess. It started falling out 1 week after, and I told my husband once it started falling out, he's going to shave it. So he did. And that following week is when it started to patch out,
Yeah. It's so hard to save it,
Yeah.
I'm 24 years old, and this is not what we were expecting. And we still at that time had no idea what she was about to face. We didn't know what metastatic breast cancer was. So I ended up shaving her head, and that was pretty emotional for her because it was, again, losing something that she felt was a part of her after losing her breast. She had no feeling whatsoever in her chest area. She did have lymphedema on the left side, so she wore a sleeve a lot of the times. She had the bodysuit, and I just cannot remember where, you fit it in there and it massages it so the blood flow can move around in the arm. So she had that also that she used. Treatments, Savannah stayed on IV chemo, which was a standard of care, for about 1.5 years. So she was stable during that time. And then she had more progression. And that was kind of in the lymph nodes here in the chest area. So then they decided to do a clinical trial, to kind of save her treatments along the way. And so she did clinical trial. That didn't last maybe not even a year.
What was the clinical trial?
That clinical trial was, and I had to write some of these down. That one, sorry, she like there. I have a, I don't even know if I should like
It's a
it's
lot.
a
Oh
lot,
yeah.
a
Yeah,
lot.
okay. Yeah, it's a lot of information, right?
It was a targeted one. It was targeting her mutations. She had several mutations after they did some tests. So they thought if we could try to aim for one of the mutations and see if it was the driver of the cancer, maybe they can slow it down. So this was a CDK clinical trial. It was a PARP inhibitor, and it was a phase
Okay.
1.
Okay. So she was on that for a year and that did not help.
No, by
Okay.
that time, they did some more scans, and that's when it went to her bones.
So can you I mean you're kind of going there right now. Can you explain to the audience what metastatic cancer is? Like what is that what where does I mean what does that look like? What is your understanding of that?
Is when it spreads to other parts of the body. It leaves the area of where it started. So on hers, it was on the left side of her breast. So it went into her lymph nodes, and then it started reaching her organs and other lymph nodes around the body. So anytime they targeted something in her body, whether it went to her liver, to her bones, to her lungs, it was still the breast cancer. So it's just that it's traveled, and there is no cure. There
Right.
is, it's
Yeah,
all, you know, prolonging their life, trying
yeah,
to keep them
people yeah,
comfortable.
people are in their survivorship, if you will, are living with metastatic breast cancer. We have a
Yeah.
friend of ours here that is living with metastatic breast cancer right now.
Yeah.
So how long was it between the time that she first felt that lump and then the second time when you said
It was
let's
when it grew, when she felt it grow already.
for the first time? Yeah.
Yeah, that was well, she was stage 4 the whole time.
The
She
whole time. So, but when she first felt that, yeah.
Yeah, it was less than a month.
How
And
frustrating.
yes, and she had, the IV chemo. She had a liver ablation where they went in and tried to zap the tumors on her liver, and they got 3 out of the 4 on that part. She had the radiation. She did radiation several times throughout the 6 years. She did Extiva shots for her bone mets, Zoladex. She had that. She went through physical therapy. She had an IVF filter put in because she was getting blood clots. So she had to do that. Per day, she was taking like 7 to 12 pills a day for side effects and pain. And that was pretty much her 6 years. I mean, she went from this really healthy, outgoing person to one that was pretty much in bed, and in and out of the hospital, constantly. We probably lived in Houston during the 6 years more than we did in our own hometown.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Definitely not something that you're expecting such a young woman to experience. I'm just, imagining the fact that how would she have ever have known anyway, without feeling that lump that something was wrong? Because, we don't get mammograms at that age, right?
No.
Um, do you do you have anything in your family? Did you uncover anything
We
about genetics?
Yeah, they did some tests,
Mhm.
and there was nothing. We have no clue
Yep.
how Savannah got the breast cancer. We couldn't find
Well,
anything.
it's frustrating because you'll never know.
We won't know that.
I'll never know how I got it. I have no idea. And I didn't have it in my family either. And most people don't have it in their family that get breast cancer anyway, which was a total mind blow to me because most people think, oh, if you have a predisposition of any kind, that is when you get breast cancer. And that's just, simply not the truth. And um, so it's got to be very frustrating. Number one, not even knowing how the heck that happened. and knowing that she was so young and she didn't get to live, her life. Um, you were an amazing caregiver to her. What was that like for you?
Oh my gosh. It was both such an honor, but at the same time, it's the hardest thing I ever had to do. Um, you got to stay strong because she got to a point where she was just trying to live. She didn't want to hear any more about her scans because scans were like every 3 months throughout. Because being stage 4, they want to keep up with the treatments and stuff. So she got to a point where it was just too much to even listen to the results of these scans. You know how they say scanxiety? It's definitely real.
They are real.
They are real, even for the caregiver.
Yeah.
But I would not change anything. Like, I was honored to be there by Savannah. And, she asked us, even from the beginning, she always said, I need for y'all to never give up, no matter how hard it is. And she says, when it comes time that I decide to stop treatments, then, that's when it's okay to say, that it's done. So we always try to stay positive with Savannah and encourage her. So as a caregiver and how I knew my daughter, when we went to Houston, it wasn't just about the treatments. We always tried to go and eat at a favorite restaurant, go take a little walk in the mall there because the malls there are, they're gigantic in the city. We always try to do something beyond just making it about cancer. And that was kind of the rewarding part of it. But then you had the side where I watched my daughter live in a lot of fear, because she never knew when her time would be up. And she always knew that it would be shorter than what she wanted. And Savannah was, amazing through it all. She smiled through it. She was courageous, brave, asked the questions when it needed to be asked, advocated for herself. So by watching this, it gave me the strength to continue to be the caregiver that I needed to be there for Savannah. But watching her as the years went by and for her to decline like she did, that was hard.
Yeah.
Those were the times where I would sneak off, into the kitchen and let the tears fall. As the years went by, the cancer had spread. It started in her breast to the lymph nodes to her liver. It did go into her lungs. She had pleural fusion around both lungs. And then she had a partial collapsed lung, and it was all in the bones. In her lymphatic system, it went back to the liver, into the liver duct. Am I saying that right? So, she was like a walking miracle by the end, And so it was hard. And I did the draining, on her lungs. And that was probably one of the toughest things to see, having this liquid come out of her body, knowing that it was carrying all those cancer cells in it. So, and so towards the end, in and out of the hospital, there was a time also that she was in the ICU. Her heart was collapsing. And that's when we learned the fluid even went around her heart. And it was tough. It was tough as a mom. I felt so helpless, because as a mom, you take care of the kids, give them medicine, try to help them in those ways. And this time I just knew there was like absolutely nothing that I could do for Savannah at all. So it also brought us closer, though. And those are the beautiful moments during this, because I got to see a whole different side to my daughter, who taught me a lot about life and appreciating stuff. But, when I think back now, I feel like I'm being ripped open again, because it's trauma. It's a lot of trauma, not just for her, but for that person watching. Because like I said, you can't do anything for them. And you just hope and pray that, that miracle pill will be there for her, or, some kind of good news. Um,
So, Savannah, you talked about how she was a walking miracle.
yes.
Um, she also found time to give back to the breast cancer community, right? So, what did that look like?
Savannah got to participate in the New York Fashion Week. She got to walk as a metastatic breast cancer, and this was done through Metaviver and Anna Ono. So she got
Yes.
to volunteer in that,
Okay.
which really opened up a lot for her because after doing that, she realized how important it was for people to understand what metastatic breast cancer was and how little it was talked about at the time. Because even with her going through different things, like even going to physical therapy, people didn't know what metastatic breast cancer was. So she decided at that time that she wanted to do more. So she met a lot of people in the cancer community, which, you have, again, your wonderful side because you meet so many people, you um, click with these people, but then you watch them pass away also. So that was reality for Savannah's
Right.
life. But she advocated on her social media. She decided that she wanted to make some earrings during that time because she couldn't work. It was too hard on her body to stay at a job. So she decided to make some earrings because when she lost her hair, she always wore caps. She wasn't never comfortable to go bald in public. And putting those earrings on just made her feel beautiful. So in her heart, she decided, I'm going to go ahead and create some earrings. So she did. She designed them, she created them, she put them together, she put them on social media. The word got out. And then by giving back, she sent free earrings to any woman that was going through treatments. And she put a little note in there that hopefully they have a good day. I have her story and a mission. Is that okay if I read that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So her story was, and her business was called The Beautiful Purpose, is what she called it. And her story was when I lost my hair during chemo, my favorite accessory to wear with my head wraps were earrings. I wasn't confident enough to show my bald head, but when I wore earrings, I felt beautiful. This is what inspired me to create a beautiful purpose. And our mission was to make every woman feel beautiful when they look in the mirror, even on her hardest day. And then, along with the sales, a portion of the earrings I create will be gifted to women undergoing cancer treatments.
I love
And
that.
she did. She donated earrings to chemo kits. She'd take them to the hospital with her, and she'd also give them to her nurses and doctors, and they all loved it. And then if she saw some patients there, she would just give them some earrings, and she just had a big heart. So
Oh,
it made her feel like it turning something into turning the cancer into something beautiful,
right.
not being stuck in all the negativity that was about.
See, a beautiful purpose. I've
Yeah,
always really liked earrings too. So I always, so I wear a lot of head wraps and beanies and things like that. And I would always put my big sunglasses on with with my earrings. And
that's what.
that always made me feel a lot better.
Yes, yes, that's what she
Yeah,
did.
I love
Um,
it.
and then she also talked in a lot of panels. She was telling her story um, on different non-profit organizations. She volunteered. So she talked about from lymphedema to not being able to have children, to metastatic breast cancer as a young adult, and everything in between that. She was always welcome for people to ask her questions. She said it always made her feel less scared. It
Right.
brought her some healing through her journey.
Sure.
And, she inspired a lot of people. I mean, not just people that had cancer. I mean, it was beyond that. When they saw her doing more for herself, and she also learned to travel. That was another thing that gave her therapy. So she
Good.
learned, she loved that also.
So she inspired a lot of people, and one of those people were you. And she had one last wish. What was that wish for her, Nancy?
Sorry. Savannah wanted her story to continue to be told. She said she wanted to continue to inspire people. And, for me, this is the hardest thing. This is one of the hardest things for me is is to say that, my daughter's physically not here anymore. But she wanted her story to be told. And she always said, if I could help at least one person out there, so with that inspiration, I'm here and I'm telling her story, to let people know, it's okay to not be okay. Life throws some things at us that, are hard, but there's always beauty. There's beauty in everything. And Savannah found that. She found beauty everywhere she looked, and she gave that to me. So I am going to continue telling Savannah's story like she wanted me to. And I'm hoping that I can capture who Savannah was and that it will help people out there, whether it's going through the cancer treatment or the grief that comes with it, because she grieved a life, a different life. And I can really relate to her grief now. I go back and read some of her posts and I thought, that's exactly how I feel, so.
Well, and plus, a daughter is not supposed to die before her mom. And so that's a totally different and legitimate type of grief for you. And you did, and luckily she's touched more than one life. Obviously, she's touched a lot of lives, and even going back to that lesson about second opinions. This is something that I think a lot of people struggle with because, we want to trust our medical providers, which obviously we should because they are the professionals. However, if something doesn't feel right, like she knew that particular oncologist did not have the bedside manner that she needed. And that gave her strength enough to say, Mom, I don't like, and like, how many people actually say something like that? Not a lot of people do. And so luckily she had the wherewithal to be able to say, Mom, this is not the person that I need to be with. So that's a huge lesson in itself, right?
It is.
So her last wish was to make sure that you told her story. What would you like to tell the world about your experience with Savannah, and what should people know about this disease? Like what is the overarching mission and message you think that you can share?
Well, my daughter, as young as she was, we think that we know that what life is about or what's important in life. And through this journey, I learned that it's so important to love, and to love with your whole heart, because you don't know how long you have. And, all I'm left with, which I'm so grateful, are pictures and videos, which she did a lot of because she knew her time was short. And she'd always say, Mom, I'm leaving all this for you, to help you. She has no idea how much more I want. I want more time with my daughter. But looking at her and her bravery and how she saw life is helping me through my grief. It's taking me through each day, because there are days I can't get out of bed. And I think to myself, how was Savannah? She was in pain. She couldn't walk, but yet she got up and she still kept that smile on her face. The lessons that I learned is, pay attention to your body. Like her being so young, she always knew when something wasn't right. And she did that throughout her journey. And she spoke about it and said, I feel like something's changed in my body. So we'd go back to the doctor. So I think it's so important to do that. They say early detection. With Savannah, there were no other signs. So, that was kind of hard. It was already in the late stage. We're so thankful that we had the 6 years with Savannah. But I would say, if you are going through the cancer treatment, it's okay to ask questions. We asked a lot of questions, and there is not a dumb question. If you're not comfortable with your oncologist, it's okay to go to another one. When Savannah did have the opportunity to do reconstruction, And she visited with different, doctors for that until she was comfortable. And I learned also that as a caregiver, it's okay even for us to ask those questions. And if that person can't answer, then you go to someone else that can answer. I think that's so important. But spending time together with your family, your loved ones, life is short. I know that now. 30 years have gone by way too fast for me. Savannah, she was brave through the whole journey. I don't think she realizes how many people she inspired through it all, because there's so many that still contact me, and if they're having a bad day, they remember some words from Savannah and stuff. But yeah,
Well,
I'm
and
kind
she's
of a
still
little speechless.
with the yeah, with this podcast, we are putting her story out there to even more people. I don't know, I don't think you and I talked about this. Is her father still in the picture?
She has a wonderful stepdad who we say is her father. He came into the picture. She was already in high school, and the bond that they have was, I mean, they were as close as her and I. He stood by her. She confided in him in many things. She looked for his support also, and he was there throughout all of it. And that's another thing that we learned. We thought we were a close family before the cancer diagnosis, but when Savannah got diagnosed, our family changed. And she also has an older sister, so everything changed. We had Sunday dinners. We traveled together. We just went and sat in each other's homes, just watching whatever on TV, just so that we can be with each other. We learned how important this time was. We learned how important it was to say, I love you. I chose Savannah throughout her entire life, but more towards the end, how much I loved her. And I can tell you today that still wasn't enough. But her father, he is my support now going through this grief.
Good.
But he was also our support. He's the one that was our rock through it all, because, like I said, I try to stay really strong in front of Savannah to give her more strength. But he was really our rock because, she knew I was going to struggle and I was struggling. So she looked to him like, hey, take care of mom, make sure that mom's going to be okay. So, yeah, and Savannah did get married during this time, and her husband was also very supportive. She wanted the title of a wife and a mom, but she did get the title of being a wife. She got to stay married to her high school sweetheart, and they were married for 2 years before she passed. And he was also in the picture, and he was a wonderful guy. I mean, he took care of my daughter. He was there by her side through it all. So,
And how's he doing now?
He's struggling with this part, like we all are. He's really trying to find himself also. They were together over 10 years, so they kind of grew up together, and they were together while she was away at college and then with her diagnosis. So, their relationship was real unique because they had to make a lot of critical decisions during this time, and they had to face a lot of results, like, not being able to have children. Even though she froze the eggs, it was someone else had to carry, for her. But in Savannah's heart, it was also the question, is it fair to bring a child into this life that's going to, not have a mother to see this child grow up? So she didn't want to be selfish in those ways. So her decision at the end was, I'm just not going to have children. And that crushed her more than anything because she wanted that life. But they did have a beautiful wedding during the time and a beautiful life together. So,
well, my heart goes out to him and your husband as well, and you and all of her friends. And I just really appreciate your sharing this story of Savannah. And I feel that she's with you, and I think that she would be very proud of you for, putting your energy into doing what she asked you to do, because that it was that important to her. And, having conversations with people like me. And what kind of advice would you give to people, or maybe even just to other caregivers, as we leave this conversation? What would you say?
I'd say, it's okay to give yourself some time. I had a really hard time with that part. I wanted to constantly be there with Savannah, and she'd always say, "Mom, if you need to go take a day, go and go walk the stores or something." But in my heart, I couldn't. But there were times where I think it would have done better for myself, and come back, and like I said, because I didn't want to be there emotional in front of her. So I say take some time for yourself. It's okay to ask for help. I say it's okay to let the person know that you are emotional that day. I would express that to Savannah and tell her I'm taking it a little bit harder today, and it's okay to do that. And again, it's okay to ask the questions when you're at the doctor's office. It's also important because we have a different view of it when we're on the outside than the one that's going through it. So I say that's very important to do also. So I know you asked me something else besides that.
Oh, no, just the advice that you would give. And that's such great advice. And I mean, I know that's really hard for people to walk away. And my husband had to get, I told him, he to go and do stuff, so he found a balance, where he could go, especially when I was sleeping and not feeling well, from the chemo. So he would go out, ride his bike, or go golfing or whatever, and then come back. And so it is really important, because if you're not physically and mentally strong, then it's really hard to take care of someone. So self-care for the caregiver too. So, well, yeah. Nancy, I just, again, really appreciate your taking the time to tell your story, because this is your story too, as a caregiver, as a grieving mom, and, telling Savannah's story. I'm so glad that you're putting it out there, and I hope you get on all kinds of other podcasts and, wherever you can spread that knowledge and that love for Savannah. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with before we wrap up?
I'd just like to thank you for this opportunity. Let me be Savannah's voice. I appreciate you taking the time even when you don't feel so well.
I know. Usually, I'm usually feeling pretty good, but obviously my audience probably can hear my stuffed upness, and I don't even know what it is. I haven't gone to urgent care, but I've been laying low and taking care of myself. So, well, I really appreciate it, Nancy. I'm sending you and your family all the love. And to my audience, I really appreciate your joining us again. And if you can head over to your favorite platform and rate and review this podcast, it really does help. Get the podcast out there to more people. And we will see you next time on the next episode of Test Those Breasts.
Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I hope you got some great, much needed information that will help you with your journey. As always, I am open to guests to add value to my show, and I'm also open to being a guest on other podcasts where I can add value. So please reach out if you'd like to collaborate. My contact information is in the show notes. And as a reminder, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast will truly help build a bigger audience all over the world. I thank you for your efforts. I look forward to sharing my next episode of Test Those Breasts.